They say a person will only ever know you as well as they know themselves. Sometimes it's not that the person won't make an effort to go beyond the superficial. Sometimes there is no beyond the superficial.
Once upon a time in a fabulous land, where morals are sparkly and fables are grand. Aesop's tales with a wise man's twist, serving wisdom on a glittery dish.
Hello Fabies, and welcome back to Aesop's Fables, where we do classic tales with a modern gay twist. I am Matt, your modern day fabulous, and I'm very happy to be back after my little hiatus where I went to America and got fat. I am of course here to talk about gay shit and woodland creatures, although we've now advanced to jungle creatures, gay creatures, sexual gay creatures. I'm going to read an original fable and then we're going to discuss it. I've been very lucky so far, as the fables I have written and have been reading out have been very much aligned with the topics and themes I want to discuss. Let's see if the miracle continues. It's the last week of Pride Month, so I'm celebrating with my flag and with my whiskey. Don't judge me, the substance abuse episode was weeks ago. And in the spirit of today's theme, I'm just a guy sitting in front of a camera, asking you to love me. Today we start the first of our two-parter episode on validation. There once was a peacock, a needy peacock. He wasn't needy in the Victorian way. He could source his own food, roost in his own tree, preen his own feathers. He was needy in the gay way. Did I mention he was gay? The needy peacock was known for his feathers. Glorious plumage of the richest azures, ceruleans, sapphires, cyans, cobalts. Blue. Everywhere he walked, he swished his glorious feathers back and forth, bumping into passers-by, not a care in the world, making sure they got out of the way. He was not the type to enjoy inconspicuousness, no. Like a good gay, like a good peacock, he wanted to be the center of attention. The peacock knew he turned heads. Let's face it, he kind of had to. His friends had shiny feathers. Happy hour at Pecker's was a veritable menagerie of colourful crests, wondrous wings, and bodacious beaks. They all preened, they all squawked, they all showed off, but even among this group, the peacock stood out. He was different. He was larger, he was louder, he was shinier. He was also there, but also not there. The other birds would try to make conversation with the peacock, but it always felt like he wasn't listening to them or looking at them. He was looking past them to see who was looking at him. They were friends, but they weren't friends. There were other flocks at Pecker's, a bit less showy, a bit more simple, a bit more plain. The pigeons, sparrows, seagulls. They weren't the prettiest birds, but they made up for it in other ways. The seagull was the loudest, and the mockingbird was a bitch, imitating those around him with cutting accuracy. The peacock didn't even notice they were there. He would swish up and down between his seat and the bar, knocking them out of the way, oblivious to their existence. One day, the peacock started losing his feathers. Relax. He did this annually. He was used to it. This time, I did the research. He had a plan to hide himself away in his tree for a few weeks while the molting process happened. He would relax, he would take care of himself, and he would re-emerge on the scene fully plumaged. He set himself up in his tree nest with some protein powder and brown microwavable rice and 8 seasons of his favorite show, Desperate House Finches. Cheers to that reference. After a few weeks, he noticed that his feathers were not returning. He pretended he was fine, but inside he was panicking. I'll just give it one more day. I'll just give it one more day. But those days came and went, and no new feathers were to be seen. He booked himself an appointment at the doctor, and while he was waiting, the secretary bird was looking at him, and he became increasingly self-conscious. A peacock without his feathers, he was distraught. He hid himself away from the world, researching miracle cures. He tried minoxidil, he tried finasteride, he even looked at a map for the flight time to Turkey. In a moment of desperation, he went herbal and rubbed caffeine cream into the part where his feathers would usually bloom and plume. He couldn't live like this. He's a peacock. Where's his feathers? He was prepared to hide away forever and had resigned himself to the fate of being the hermit peacock when he suddenly heard a commotion at the base of his tree. Clucking. Crowing. Oh, for f***'s sake, just what I need. A chicken. He settled back in and turned up the volume on Desperate House Finches. It was gripping. The clumsy finch was in another love triangle. Eventually, the crowing and clucking stopped. But just every now and then, over the sound of the Desperate House Finches, he could hear chirping. And the more he tuned into it, the more he could hear it was growing louder and more frantic. Surreptitiously poked his bald head out of his tree and looked down at the forest floor. A single baby chick was there, abandoned by its chicken family. Being the cunt that he was, the peacock went to return to his nest, but a pang of something went through him. He consulted his books. Was this guilt? Was it responsibility? One thing was certain. It was non-selfishness. It terrified him. He descended to the ground. I don't know how, he needs feathers to fly. I researched to a point. And as he landed on the ground, the chick ran up to him excitedly, chirping, jumping. Beep, 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 beep. It's as high as I go today. The peacock recoiled. He was still featherless and highly self-conscious. But the chick didn't seem to mind. And eventually, the peacock knelt down and gave in. The chick ran up the peacock and gently nestled itself in the peacock's back skin. He felt its little heartbeat slow as it relaxed and became calm. And this calmed him. Was it calm he was feeling? No. It was peace. Was it the first bit of peace he'd had since his feathers fell out? Definitely. But if he thought about it a bit longer, it was possibly the first peace he'd had ever. His anger and frustration dissipated. And he realized that he could feel good about himself for something that wasn't his feathers. I think it's pretty obvious what the moral of this story is. When you feel bad about yourself, adopt a child. Thank you. It is better to be adored by few than admired by many. Admiration is a focus on a person's achievements, their qualities, their behaviors. Adoration is something more. It's the whole person. It's the bit you can't break down into a laundry list of achievements, a laundry list of qualities or behaviors that you love about someone. It's just them. It's a connection to a person's whole. To the whole person, a being, not a list. They're both important, but a focus on the first one, the admiration, may leave you feeling a little hollow and unfinished. That list can always be longer, but a whole is just a whole. This week's fable gets to that scary and overused word, validation. The desire to be told that we are worthwhile. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a gay man in a big city must be in want of validation. But if we got to the truth of what that really means, everybody needs validation, everybody needs reassurance. So why do we look at it as a bad thing? Why does someone seeking it make us go, ugh? What makes me go, ugh? Maybe it's a me thing. should we be more specific and say that need for excessive validation is problematic? Because we all need the baseline. Another lens to explore the concept of validation would be the locus of control, which is a psychological concept about how much control people feel they have over their own lives. It comes in two forms, like me, an internal and an external. People with an internal locus of control believe that they are responsible for where they are in life and that they have great sway over their life's fate. They see their successes and failures as a consequence of their traits, skills, decisions, abilities, and they will take responsibility when they fail. In contrast, people with an external locus of control feel like life happens to them. They are passengers and at the whim of fate and circumstance. Their successes and failures are nothing to do with them, and they will always be the first to blame someone else when they do something wrong. They are also the neediest in terms of external validation, external locus of control, need for external validation. It's symbiotic. People aren't one or the other. I'm being dramatic. It's a continuum, and we slide along it at different times in our lives and in different circumstances and with different people. But we do have a learned preference that we can work on with dedicated practice. Become worse through conscious effort. But I don't want you to think that it's internal good, external bad. It's not that simple. Both can be destructive at the extreme. And we need to be a little less judgmental of other people. We can't choose how we spent our formative years or how society treats us just because of who we like to make out with. We don't all get the privilege of learning how to take responsibility. For some people, taking responsibility is incredibly painful. And for people who have learned to go totally internal, they don't get the elation of blaming your problems on someone else. Personally, I'm more neutral. Sometimes I have high self-esteem, sometimes I have low, within a 20-minute period. And when it has been low, I've had to borrow the esteem others have for me from them through validation and reassurance. I cling to their good impression of me until I feel that way myself. Like a placenta of worth and value feeding me. But as you can imagine, there are issues with this. Firstly, we can become dependent on it, needing others to replenish our cup when we run dry. That means when others are not around, we die of thirst. Secondly, it can make us focus on the wrong things, or not necessarily the wrong things, but only just a part of who we are. We seek approval for some aspects of ourselves and ignore the rest or take the rest for granted. We try and get told that we're pretty, but not that we're kind. We peacock, we don't pander. In the gay scene, this comes down to looks, salary, penis size, number of followers. You get the drill, you know the people. In my experience, the peacocks are the most seemingly self-assured. I was once having a conversation with a prominent peacock of my past who was telling me that he was the most confident person he'd ever met. I stared at him and said, "Do you know who never says that?" "Who?" he replied. "A confident person." The dramatic irony of all of this is that often a peacock's confidence is rooted in something they can't control. The perception of others. These peacocks keep their confidence in their feathers, and that leaves them a little vulnerable. A peacock's feathers are only as beautiful as a peahen sees them to be. I love the idea of not feeling like I need to look a certain way, or be a success, or be the smartest, or be the funniest. But also, the idea of not caring about those things terrifies me. I have experience of these things. I said in the last Fables episode that I got very sick. I didn't look like me. I had horrible scars. I had stitches. I was really skinny, like in an unhealthy way from being in hospital for a long time. I felt horrible, very justifiably. I was starting to feel a little bit more like myself. I could wear clothes. I managed to get a haircut, the first haircut, which means some of my hair was growing back. And someone I know intimately came over, and the best compliment he could muster was, "Oh, you look less sick." I was devastated because my fragile self-esteem was really rattled. I didn't look how I normally look, and for a long time, being so vulnerable, my sense of self had really become dependent on other people, not just praising me, but I could sort of only see myself through them because I couldn't see myself when I looked in the mirror. I was at the complete mercy of others. But interestingly, I was also around this time starting to get lots of positive feedback about my strength and resilience, things that I'd come across before in terms of praise, but had never really taken a lot of notice of. But it started to sink in, and I started to believe it. And this was a bit of a shift from the sort of external validation to the internal validation, where I didn't need to hear it from others anymore. I really believed it myself. I asked some friends about their own validation needs, internal, external, so what they receive validation for and crave, and what they give themselves validation for and the rest of the world doesn't notice. And with the external validation, I was surprised what I heard. It was mostly things about being hardworking, being giving, showing kindness to others. I am of course joking. It was looks, looks, looks. But in fairness, there was some range and diversity in the types of looks. For some it was being tall, for others it was being handsome, for some it was being muscular, for others it was looking young. It was a spectrum of looks. In fairness, I also got a few sense of humors and fashion sense. I mean, I'm laughing, but it makes sense. It would be physical. We live online, we share the online version of ourselves. More or less, we see before we hear. It's not just that the gay community is superficial, it's that we're all superficial. But there was a second part to my hard-hitting interview questions. What do you value about yourself and validate about yourself that you don't necessarily need the world to know about? One friend said that something he really admires about himself and validates himself that he doesn't think everyone knows is his emotional growth and independence. He said that he has quietly worked on this and that it's not particularly praised by anyone, maybe his mum, he said, but otherwise people don't tend to notice because it's not the type of thing that you do notice necessarily. Just someone getting by and getting a bit stronger, a bit more intelligent about themselves and just a bit more resilient and a bit more able to do things on their own. It's gradual. He reflected that his younger self would not have valued any of this. And this is something that he's come to realize in his late 30s. And I feel that. And that's the lesson. It's not just writing off the gays as superficial or the world as superficial. I mean, you can, but you get a bit bitter living like that. I think it's just a little reminder that all peacocks lose their feathers. And we might want a few more tricks up our sleeves. So let's figure out some things that we don't need the world to see and recognize, for us to see and recognize. We will know it's true, and that's not just enough, that's more than enough. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm trying to grow this account. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already, if you like this kind of content. It gives me validation. Have a moral week, babies.
Fables, it's the tea, it's the show. Lessons in love with a fabulous glow. Quick wit, sharp, he'll strut the moral road. Gather round, hun, let the gay story unfold.